Hannaford, and the 7-Eleven breaches. Now, for those of us who study data breaches, we're like, there's this TJX thing, it's huge. All right, so there's the Shadowproof site, that was huge. Heartland Payment Systems, Hannaford, none of us thought this was the same person. Brian Krebs thought it was the same criminal group involved over in Russia, which was. But here in the U.S., this was all run by Gonzalez, by his former friend from the Morgan Stanley guy, programmer, at least that's what the belief is. And then there were two companies that weren't released in the indictment. They later revealed Target and JCPenney, who fought tooth and nail to keep their names out of the press. And the judge said, no, your customers have a right to know. They said they didn't want to panic anybody. So they shouldn't have to do it. So I'm not kidding. That is the big quote from court. And those are the ones that try to remain confidential. In February 2009, these are the FBI release. Now this is interesting. This was before we knew it was Gonzalez. These are the FBI release an alert. They don't say that this was the case. They say, those of you in the payment industry need to watch for the following. SQL injection with XP command shell. The exact same method that was used to breach card systems in 2004. Now we're up to 2008, 2009, when they issued this alert. They talked about the details of the snippers that were installed. This is all based on Gonzalez's stuff. And this method, and later we were able to correlate back that this is the specific technical technique used. And it was interesting. They very, very carefully targeted these organizations. They would go into stores and they'd figure out the manufacturer of the point of sale terminals. That's the way how they would figure out how to crack the encryption and stuff, or figure out what the servers were, where the cards were, and target onto the back end. In Heartland's case, they did the SQL injection, and they got it. Heartland actually had separated out their transaction stuff from their non-transaction stuff. This is Bob Carr, the guy that went to sell all of his stock before publicly reporting that they didn't breach. And you can look that one up on your own. So what happened was is they got into an employee system on the non-transaction part of the network. They got malware in there. They managed to hit a dev unit through their sniffing around, a developer or an administrator. And when he VPN into the transaction side, and literally somebody who was involved in this told me that connection was up for like 15 minutes, and that was enough that they just happened to be watching that system at that time. Yes?
Several bars from this, but they were PCI compliant.
Everybody was PCI compliant. Well, no. Nobody has ever been PCI compliant who's been breached. Ask Bob Russo, who is the editor. And I met with him. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, well, no, they're all non-compliant. And we only do the assessments anyway. I go, yeah, of course they're non-compliant because you could always find something after the fact to make them non-compliant. Okay? Because nobody is perfect. And they don't do the assessments in enough depth to know if somebody is compliant everywhere across their system.
They got into the non-transaction side, PCI won't even look at that side.
No, it doesn't even look at it. Yeah. It's not out of the scope of the audit. So it's because somebody VPN didn't know. That made them non-compliant. They didn't have the right logging. I've heard that one before. They would have caught it if they were looking at their logs. I have been told that by people at PCI on certain breaches. I'm like, come on. Just, I know you have to do what the card brands tell you to do, but that's just disingenuous. I mentioned they would physically find stuff, and then they had to determine who the payment processing systems were. You know, these guys did a lot of work. I mean, they weren't getting rich or dying trying in the process. Let's go back to our timeline for a bit. So we have all that stuff happen with Gonzalez. We had Val. Val gets breached. I only put that in there because Val also had the intellectual property loss. Half-Life 2 code got lost many years ago. Somebody got in. And I know some other video game companies actually. It's a huge deal with their code getting hacked. We had our next one over here, HM Revenue and Customs. This was huge over in the UK. Many millions of records because this is the tax company, the tax people, and over in the UK, and all of the stuff got exposed. Now, did they really get exposed? No. They put a CD in the mail between one ministry and another ministry. Now, a junior staffer was winning for this. It's always a junior staffer, by the way. Always a junior staffer. I took out the case of the Veterans Administration. Same thing, a junior staffer sort of thing. Turns out everybody was doing this. The internal investigation said, no, you guys are lying out of your teeth. This was fully approved. So that's how you exchange your data. But big political repercussions there. Forrester Research, December 5th, 2007. I was hoping Andy was going to be in the room today, but it's not. Oh well. Nobody else is going to get that joke. That was meaningless. Gardner got briefed once while I was there. Eli Lilly. This one is great. Eli Lilly. So, you know that auto complete thing on email. So if you work for, you guys can't read this really well. If you're the outside legal counsel, and in your autocomplete, you have the name Alex Berenson, who is a reporter for the New York Times. And you also have the name Bradford Berenson, which is another fellow legal counsel. You want to make sure you pick the right one when you send your email. The internal legal counsel emailed the entire case file of a $1 billion government settlement between Eli Lilly and the U.S. government for fraud to the New York Times reporter. This is the equivalent of Apple walking into Gizmodo's office and going, "Here, the next iPhone. You want the new iPad? How about OS 12?
Too much money on the lottery.
Yeah. Oh my God. And they were freaking out. So like, the story comes out, first the phone calls start. And they're freaking corporate, internal corporate, like security. I mean, it's a pharmaceutical. They got big security. They're investigating. They're running around. I mean, they're going nuts trying to figure out where this leak is. And then they finally traced it back to the outside. You know, and the New York Times first. I got the case file. Have fun, guys.
Yeah. An email disclaimer at the bottom that says this was intended for you.
You know what's really funny about that, though? So my brother-in-law is a lawyer, and I'm working with him and one of his associates because they want to get more into covering legal issues associated with technology and security. And I said, "Why don't you do a blog post for us talking about how worthless those are?" I'm like, "You know they're worthless. We know they're worthless." He goes, "Yeah. Why do you do it?" Because we're lawyers. They can cover our ass. I mean, that's why those things are on there. Even though it doesn't mean anything. So we get back to our timeline. I skipped around a little bit. We have Hannaford. That's, Albert Gonzalez. You figure it out. We have Dave & Buster's in 2008. We have Countrywide. They got breached. There's now a class action lawsuit of a few hundred people against Countrywide. Because Countrywide basically said, "Oh, you're not at risk. We're not going to do anything for you." Customers said, "No, maybe not." Then we have RBS World 10. This one's used. It's the last in-depth one I'm going to do, and then I'll let you guys get out of here to your beers and stuff. So I'm 55 minutes, not that late. RBS World Pay had occurred November 10th, 2008. Up to 1.5 million records compromised, $9 million direct losses for RBA ATMs. That occurred because the first attacker identified vulnerability in one of the RBS systems. So this is a guy over in Estonia. Calls up a buddy of his and says, "I found this one in. I don't know what to do with it." Buddy goes, "I know what to do with it." Gives the username and password he found to get into the system. They got in. They got access to the database of ATM account numbers and PINs. I believe they used shared memory monitoring attack on this one, memory parsing attack. I'm not 100% sure on that malware. That's definitely not public from what I was able to find to confirm that. That's the rumor I heard. And that's how they got the PIN code, I think. So what they did is they had direct access, full access to the database. So they upped the limits, the account limits and the withdrawal limits on 44 prepaid payroll cards. So these were used over here. The payroll cards work like an ATM card. You get paid, and they'll go directly into your payroll card to pull the money out from the ATM into your account. 3 days later, so literally 3 days from discovering the initial vulnerability, 3 days later they managed to coordinate. They had 2,100 ATMs in 280 cities over a 12-hour period. The guy who was responsible, this is fucking amazing. So the guy who was responsible for the attack is sitting there and actually watching the database in real time. Why? Because the people that they sent out, the mules, got kicked 30 to 50% of what they were pulling out of these ATMs. And so he was in there logging how much money everybody was taking out of each card that they had signed to the mule, so they had an enforcement mechanism to make sure that they got paid. And the mules didn't just take the cash and run. They tried to monitor and cover their tracks in real time. RBS officials did very quickly detect this attack, very quickly got authorities involved. They didn't erase enough of the logs, they were able to trace it back and arrest these guys months later. Really, really amazing. Awesome case of hard work. And this is a direct quote, which is early detection of fraudulent ATM activities in Estonia, which is where they detected it. They got an immediate response out of the Estonian police. I immediately identified like 3 people who were in custody over in Estonia. Is that where one of the Dilbert characters comes from? Yeah, sorry. They're extraditing somebody. They did cooperation between the Hong Kong police force, the FBI, the Estonian criminal service, and I can't remember how many other countries where they went through all this. Netherlands police. All these international guys went out. This is where the FBI was. Really, really awesome case of law enforcement. Didn't prevent the breach, but they managed to get it quickly. Indicted by a federal grand jury in Atlanta, November 10th, 2009, and